Welcome back. Those are stories, top stories of what's happening in the country, rather on the continent and on the global scene. And one of the stories there is the fact that the federal government decided to suspend foreign bilateral scholarships program cites misuse of public funds. Now, according to the story, the Nigerian government has announced the official discontinuation of the Bilateral Education Agreement (BEA) scholarship program, saying it wastes public funds and offers courses already available in Nigerian universities. The BEA program, established through diplomatic partnerships, enabled Nigerian students to study in various countries, including China, Russia, Algeria, Hungary, Morocco, Egypt, and Serbia. Under the program, students were supported with funds for tuition and living expenses. Who made the announcements was Tunji Alausa, the Minister of Education, during a courtesy visit by the National Association of Nigerian Students, as the newly elected officials when they went to visit him. How does this impact us? Let's see what happens in the long run. Hopefully they will allow those who are currently there to finish out their term and provide for them. Still in the news, we see that the Afrexim Bank is a new loan of $3 billion to slash Nigeria's full import bill. According to the story, the Afrexim Bank, that's the African Export-Import Bank, has rolled out a $3 billion revolving credit line that will enable Nigerian, African, and Caribbean buyers to source petrol, diesel, jet fuel, and other products from refineries on the continent more easily. In a statement, the bank expects the facility to provide $10 billion to $14 billion of trade finance over its first 3 years and help reduce the region's roughly $30 billion annual fuel import bill. How will this impact us here in Nigeria? Will it make the cost of fuel lower? Let's see how that goes as things happen. Now, to something quite important, and it's happening. I don't know how many of us have experienced it, at least in the last few days. The network has been quite crappy, and it says that network still woes persist after 50% tariff hike. You can't make calls, you can't use the internet. Nigerians are facing a poor mobile network quality despite paying 50% more for calls and data, drawing criticisms from consumers hard hit by a cost of living crisis. We're expecting that due to this hike that there will be better network, better infrastructure. But the next story we see after this is that the telco, according to the NCC, the telco companies are now ordering parts. Hopefully when they're done with their infrastructure repairs, the network will get better. And lastly, on the story there, we're looking at PenCom is to recover 1.3 billion naira on paid pension contributions owed to journalists. Now, Omolola Oluwarara, Director General of the National Pension Commission, says newspaper organizations in Nigeria owe retired journalists over 1.3 billion naira in unpaid pension contributions. In a statement on Tuesday by the management of the commission, she spoke during a visit to the Nigerian Press Council, where she led a delegation from PenCom. Now, according to the story, the DG expressed concerns about the widespread non-compliance with the Pensions Reform Act 2014 by media establishments. Now, she said the PenCom and NPC have entered into a strategic collaboration aimed at urging newspaper organizations to address their substantial pension liabilities. Hopefully, this visit will make an impact and journalists who are owed their pensions would get their money. That's it for top stories. Let's go and look at crude oil prices. Now we see on the crude oil price that Brent crude is at $63.50, down by 1.17%. Now the OPEC basket is at $68.16, down by 2.99%. These are all prices as of this morning, 7 a.m. Now that's it on top stories and crude oil prices. Let's go to our conversation of the day. We'll come back from the break. We're looking at the refineries in Nigeria. What's really happening? The revamping, the revitalization, the revival. Is it a failed venture? When we come back, there's more. Welcome back to the program here on Trust TV, Still Business Daily. And I said before the break that we'll be looking at the Nigerian refinery situation, the revival. Is it a failed venture? We've heard so much about it. Just recently, the Warri Refinery was in the news about there being a collapse. However, the NNPCL has come to say there was no collapse. But let's take a look into that conversation. And joining me virtually from here in Abuja to further converse and discuss is engineer Yabagi Sani. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. He is an energy expert and legal metrology expert. Engineer, can you hear me? Engineer, if you could hear me, please unmute your mic. All right.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Please, Engineer Sani.
Yes.
All right. So again, Engineer Yabagi Sani is joining us, energy and legal metrology expert. If you don't mind my asking, who is a legal metrologist?
Okay, legal metrology is the science of measurement. It has to do with how a country governs exchange of trade through measurements, meaning that you talk about metering, you talk about weighing, and you can see that that is very crucial, especially in the area we are talking about. If you cannot measure, there's no way you can monitor, there's no way you can control. That's what's happening in the oil and gas sector. Metrology is not allowed to take roots for reasons of corruption. And that's why some of us who are experts in that field, we feel very sad for Nigeria.
Okay. All right, now let's get to the conversation. Thank you for that explanation. Nigeria's refineries in the last few months, especially the Port Harcourt and Warri refinery, have been, spoken about by the government as symbols of progress. In fact, of course, we've seen high-profile visits, public praise from the president, and all that, and former NNPCL CEO Mele Kyari, that the plant was not only operational but producing significant output. Now, the Warri refinery has taken quite a lump of money, really, in trying to get it to work, about $80 million, and as of December, it said it was working. Then in January this year, we say, okay, well, putting a stop due to some fire to fix things, and that's how the case has been so far. So far, the Warri refinery hasn't done any production. Generally, tell us your outlook and your take on the Nigeria refinery revival story that has been going on since last year, especially since the Dangote refinery came on stream.
Yeah, well, we Nigerians, unfortunately, will be taken for a ride for too long. And I don't know when it's going to stop, because what they call turnaround maintenance of these refineries have been going on since when the refineries were constructed. And each time they talk about turnaround maintenance, it's just a way by which NNPC officials, in collaboration with government and some contractors, will now get about billions of dollars, of Nigerian money, and claim that they are going to revamp or repair the refinery so that they can work. But for almost more than 20 years now, this has been going on, and refineries are not working to capacity. We have always been importing the refined products in this country, if you remember correctly. And this is not a rocket science, kind of enterprise. Look at Dangote Refinery. Dangote started his refinery very recently, and he has commissioned it, and it's working. So the question Nigerians should ask themselves is that how come the government that has been in this business since 1975 until now cannot manage to make at least one refinery, one out of four, to work? This is just a way of milking Nigerians, stealing Nigerians' wealth, and making Nigerians to look like fools, because that's what we have been made to look like. And there are fundamental issues. If you remember, recently, before the last administration, left, they approved nothing less than $3-something billion to revamp these refineries. I remember $2.4 billion was $2-something billion was approved by PEC under Buhari, for refineries in Port Harcourt, Kaduna, Warri, and the two at Port Harcourt. But nothing happened. There was also another $1 billion that was taken out, by Mele Kyari and Butterview, that they are going to repay. Nothing happened. So it's a case of taking Nigeria for a ride and then, laughing at us as fools, So this is why, but you see, there are fundamental issues, and I have not seen any move that will tell one that things are going to change. Believe you me, things are going to get worsened. And I'll tell you why things are going to get worsened. The fundamental issues we have here is that you have, like I started by telling you what legal metrology is all about. There is no measurement in the oil and gas industry that you can talk about. And you can't measure, you can't even monitor. Government cannot monitor, Nigerians cannot monitor what is happening in that industry. To talk about controlling them. So, number two, the ownership. Now, we lie to Nigerians that we have privatized, NNPC. And the which we call now NNPCL under Melekari. Believe you me, it's a ruse. It's something that was used to wind Nigerians. I'll tell you why I'm saying so. Nigeria, they said it's a private entity now. Owned by who? I ask. It's owned by Federal Ministry of Finance Incorporated, which is headed by Wale Edu, and is also owned by Federal Ministry of Petroleum Energy Incorporated, which is headed by Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself. So you have two Yoruba men now holding this equity in trust for Nigerians. Now come down to the person that was appointed just in April as the GCEO of that corporation. And the Bayo Ajulari was the executive vice president of Shell Petroleum until 1921. And when he left that in 1921, they now formed a consortium called Renaissance African Petroleum Company. That Renaissance African Petroleum Company, which is owned by Bayo Ajulari, invested $2.4 billion to acquire Shell Petroleum Nigeria. So this Bayo Ajulari is an owner of Shell Petroleum Company, who is now heading NNPC, a state organization, and you expect that private interest will not conflict with the state interest. So the point I'm making is that you cannot Yorubanize the economy of this country, because when you grab and you have this kind of hold on the petroleum industry, which means you have a hold on the economy of this country. And I cannot see how private interest in charge of state interest will not have, a kind of conflict. So we haven't seen nothing yet, and I'm calling on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to please remember God and step up to the plate and make the oil and gas industry in Nigeria to work. Because look at the setup in the industry. You take it from the ownership, like I've told you. It is the Minister of Finance, who is Wale Edu, and it is the president himself, who is the Minister of Petroleum Resources. So when you come down to the chief executive officer of the organization, it is now by Ojulari, another Yoruba man. You go to NPRC, it is Engr that is now.
All right, so Engineer Sani seems to be quite very passionate about the conversation, and Engineer, I can see that you made a conversation about the Yorubanization. I do not want to believe that the president is playing an ethnic or tribal game with our economy. That's not what I think that's happening there. But that's by the way, that's by the side. Let's look at the impact of this whole situation on our economy, because we were saying that when the refinery were to come up, adding that to what Dangote was doing, was supposed to right now not be importing fuel. But we can see that that's not the case really. So now at this rate really, with the rehabilitation, going on journey, can we actually deliver energy independence and cost savings in the near term? How near do you think that us as a country will have energy independence and not depending on importation of fuel?
Not under this regime that we have today, because the regime you have today has private interest in the oil and gas sector, not to work, for your interest. Because if it doesn't work, they can now import refined petroleum products, which they refined outside this country, and they can now have the crude oil, which is supposed to be given to the local refineries, which they will export. Because don't forget that, there's no other way to look at this issue than to tell the truth as it is. The truth of the matter is that you cannot privatize the equity, I mean, the wealth, the commonwealth of this country, especially in that sector. I mean, there's no way we can go away from that, because we cannot get it right until you allow the private equity. Why don't you allow Nigerians to own equity, privatize NNPCL in the proper way, let Nigerians go to the stock market so that we can buy, those who want to have interest in the oil and gas sector, and it will not be a private, one family kind of affair as we are having it today. Okay. This is the truth of the matter. Okay. Once we get ourselves out of this quagmire that we are in, then we can begin to address the issue of corruption in that sector. Because why did it take our president so long to fire Mele Kyari? It's because there is some kind of conspiracy against Nigerians. Otherwise, Mele Kyari should have stayed one day longer than you had Emefiele in CBN, who was sacked. You were talking about subsidies, people that abused the subsidies. Subsidy on Naira was abused by Emefiele. Subsidy on petroleum was abused by Mele Kyari. So why punish one and leave the other one? So it is too late and too little in the day. And the reasons why these decisions are not taken is because of what I've just told you. There's a private interest, a family interest in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria. It has to be diversified. Okay. It has to be Nigerianized.
Okay, so basically you're saying that the government should focus more on modular refineries, incentivizing private parties like Dangote. Will that be better for us as a country?
No, I mean, Dangote didn't, I wish we could have more Dangotes, to not only cover the market in Nigeria, West Africa, and the world as it's doing now. That is giving Nigeria a very good, mileage in terms of our image and things like that, and dominance in the global economy, but not the kind of rigmarole we are having in terms of running our own state enterprise, which is NNPCL. NNPCL effectively, by what we do, our president, who is the Minister of Petroleum Resources, and Wale to bring the Minister of Finance. So they decide what happens. When you come to the executive level, you now have somebody who has in $2.4 billion was invested by Ojulari. He led that consortium to buy Shell Petroleum, and the same person is now coming to run our state, enterprise. How bad could it be? And you are expecting something to change. Nothing will change in this sector until we change the mindset, until the president steps up to the plate and then answer his name as he did in front of the Nigerians when he took the power, and he swore to his creator using Quran that he's going to administer this God-given gift, in a manner that will serve our interest. That is not happening today.
All right. Our conversation and topic really was this, and I want you to answer me straightly. Is the Nigerian refineries revival or revitalization or whatever is happening there, is it a failed venture? Can it be a cost?
It was never meant to work. That's what you should understand. It was never meant to work. It was meant to serve the private pockets. Okay. If we are a serious country, we should have called, all this, even before Mele Kyari, even the one sitting there now. Why are we where we are today? Okay. You find them there. Their hands are there, and they know what they are doing. They are experts in that field. So what I'm saying is that our government should stand up, because we don't have another government. We don't have another country. There's no other way this thing can work unless the chief executive of the country, who today is our president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, should step up to the plate and be clean about things. That is not happening today. We shouldn't take ourselves for too long and expect magic to happen. There's no magic that will happen. When you have somebody with private interest running your state, your state enterprise, how do you expect that to work? It will not work. You want him to sacrifice his private interest for your interest? So it's not about the refinery alone. It's about the whole industry, the whole oil and gas industry that must come clean under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the man in charge of the finance ministry, who own the industry.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Engineer Yabagi Sani, for joining us today on Business Daily. We have quite a short time today, so we can't continue the conversation. But it's been a pleasure having you on Business Daily today with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
We've been talking about the refinery in Nigeria, about the refineries in Nigerian refineries revival. Is it a failed venture? And our guest is saying he doesn't even think that it was meant to work. But that's what he has his opinion on the conversation. Hopefully the government could do some course correcting and we could move forward and see something different happening in that sector. And that's it for Business Daily today on Trust TV. For more of our news, programs and documentaries, to follow us on our social media platforms and our YouTube live stream. Same time, same place tomorrow. I am Chiamaka Nwafor. Bye for now.